Matsepura Harold Ivanovich. What should we do so that there are no wars and we live happily? Epigraph. What do all people live for to fight all the time? Without knowing the meaning of life, everyone is doomed to suffer. Search, and think what is the highest meaning of life. Once in the world, no one will be superfluous. Then everyone will have a useful task for eternity, and in a reasonable business, happiness will be wonderful. Summary of artificial intelligence about the worldview set out in the book by Matsepura. What should we do so that there are no wars, and we live happily? The problem is considered in a complex way, from the psychology of the individual to the global economy and cosmology. Emphasis on morality and self-control. It is correctly noted that external changes are meaningless without internal work on yourself. Reliance on the global goals of sustainable development of mankind is necessary to solve many problems of people and nature. The proposal to focus on the officially adopted International Plan of Action is practical and realistic. Recognizing the biological roots of behavior with references to the work of Sapolsky and others adds to the scientific arguments. Content. About wars. About vices. Labor. The law of overproduction. 17 Sustainable Development Goals for Humanity. Intelligent lifestyle of people. About the immortal souls of people. What do people live for, and what is the ultimate meaning of life? About religions and God. Resume. About wars. About 60 interstate and more than 180 regional military conflicts were registered in the world in 2024. Information from the video posted on the YouTube channel International Review 11/7. 2025. Millions of peaceful people have suffered and are suffering from various military conflicts that have taken place and are still taking place on our planet. For almost the entire historical development of mankind, people have been killing each other. But now humanity has reached such a level of its scientific, technical, socio-economic, and cultural development when it has become possible to stop wars between people and make life on Earth happy. Let's see how this can be done. Vices. The main causes of wars and the miserable life of the world's population are immorality, ignorance, and poverty of many people. Therefore, unless people become well-educated, have a decent well-being, and lead a healthy and peaceful lifestyle, they will never be able to live happily ever after. Most of all, people suffer from their vices and start military conflicts because of them. Therefore, each person must be able and willing to effectively cope with various vices in order to live well. People have always struggled with vices, but only now, thanks to the modern level of development of the Earth's civilization, it has become possible to successfully cope with them and stop wars on our planet. This can be achieved as follows. To effectively deal with vices, you need to know their nature. Vices are people's excessive satisfaction of many of their needs, which they need to meet in moderation in order to live well. Excessive satisfaction by people of many of their needs leads them to various troubles. For example, there are people who constantly overeat. This leads them to suffer from obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and other diseases. As a rule, poorly educated and ignorant people lead a vicious lifestyle because they believe that happiness lies in the immeasurable satisfaction of their various needs. Such people are not able to understand that the joys of satisfying immeasurable needs are temporary, and that sooner or later they will lead them to numerous troubles. There are also people who look for salvation in vices from boredom, melancholy, or unhappy life. For example, to escape poverty or become even richer, some people steal, take bribes, destroy nature, commit other crimes, and even murder. The vice of excessive aggression. Most people suffer from the vice of excessive aggression. Excessive aggression is the extreme cruelty that people show to each other and nature. This vice has biological roots, since aggression was passed down to us genetically from our animal ancestors. Aggression is necessary for animals to get food, protect themselves and their territories from enemies. In addition, many animals use violence to assert their power and prolong the race. For example, chimpanzees often beat each other up severely for food, sex, and asserting leadership. The fact that excessive aggression in humans is of a biological nature is confirmed by observations of children. At an early age, when no one could teach them cruelty, we often see some children beating up defenseless animals, fighting with each other, and even raising a hand against their parents. Because of this vice, many people die in domestic, family, military, and other conflicts. The fact that the vice of excessive aggression in humans is of a biological nature was proved by the scientist Robert Sapolsky. Video on YouTube on the internet. Robert Sapolsky, what is special about us? In moderation, people need aggression to protect themselves from dangerous animals, invaders, bandits, terrorists, and other criminals. But many people do not adhere to reasonable measures, because the vice of excessive aggression, in addition to its biological nature, also has social roots. This is due to the fact that people often use physical and psychological violence to satisfy their immense needs for wealth, power, fame, sex, laziness, alcohol, drugs, food, and others. So they rob, intimidate, rape, maim, start wars, and kill innocent people just to satisfy their insatiable needs. In addition, there are people who commit murder to get rid of poverty or take revenge on the abuser. Some media outlets that promote violence and brutality also contribute to the development of excessive aggression in people. And this is very dangerous, because when people cannot or do not want to restrain excessive aggression in themselves, this vice enslaves them. For example, there are people who feel bad if someone is not maimed or killed. For such people, fights, wars, terror, contract killings, banditry become the meaning of their lives. To deal with the vice of excessive aggression, governments in many countries are constantly toughening the penalties for sadistic crimes of people and taking other measures to protect the population from criminals. But it is not possible to stop violence in the world by these means alone. Therefore, more effective measures are needed to deal with excessive aggression of people. There are such measures, and they are as follows. The most important thing in the successful fight against vices is the correct upbringing of each person from childhood. But pedagogy, which adheres to the theory of a blank slate, does not allow for a good upbringing of children, since it is based on the dogma that a person is born without vices. This misconception is due to the fact that it is difficult to detect defects in a child at an early age, since they begin to manifest themselves in children later. For this reason, it seems that a person is born an angel, and he learns vicious behavior only from immoral people and some immoral media. Therefore, parents and teachers who adhere to the theory of a blank slate, the main emphasis in raising children is only on protecting their pupils from immoral people. But first of all, it is impossible to completely protect children from the influence of people and mass media who are engaged in popularizing a vicious lifestyle. And secondly, if a person is not taught from childhood to restrain his vices, then he will not be able to resist them and they will enslave him. From this, he will suffer himself and other people. In addition, when raising children, it is necessary to take into account the fact that each person has different tendencies to certain vices from birth at the genetic level. So some children are more prone to excessive aggression, others to laziness, others to theft, and others to several vices at once. Therefore, parents and teachers need to determine what vices their students are most prone to and take such measures that will teach children to restrain the desire to excessively satisfy their various needs. To do this, parents and caregivers should control the behavior of children and not allow them to behave immorally. Now, thanks to video surveillance cameras, computers, smartphones, and other gadgets, it is possible to accurately determine where and when a pupil behaved immorally. A pupil caught in a particular offense should be clearly explained that it is impossible to behave in a vicious way, because this will make him and other people feel bad. For example, in order to teach a pupil to successfully deal with his excessive aggression, it is necessary to catch him in the manifestation of violence and explain to him that he must restrain this vice in himself. If the pupil does not stop committing violence after repeated moralizing, then he should be forced to restrain excessive aggression, even applying various punishments to him. Punishments should not be excessive, so as not to physically and mentally injure children. But they should be effective enough for students to start consciously restraining excessive aggression in themselves. If you properly educate a person from an early age, then serious punishments will not be needed. This method of education will teach a person from childhood to restrain not only excessive aggression, but also other vices, so that he himself does not suffer from a vicious lifestyle, other people and nature. Moreover, now it is possible to install devices everywhere that can determine where and when a person behaved immorally. When all children and adults know that they are being monitored and their behavior is being recorded, it will encourage them to restrain their vices. For example, in London, Beijing and other cities around the world, after surveillance cameras were placed in public places that could determine the identity of each person who broke the law, crime decreased significantly. While many people are not perfect, especially teenagers, such control is necessary because an immoral, poorly educated person is not able to suppress his vices and restrain himself from delinquency on his own. Such people can only restrain themselves from committing crimes out of fear of being caught and punished, and this is not always the case. In addition, it is often only thanks to surveillance cameras that criminals can be identified, punished, and isolated so that they do not interfere with decent people's good lives. A well-bred and educated person monitoring his behavior in public circles does not prevent him from living normally. For example, controlling me with various gadgets does not prevent me from leading a reasonable, useful, healthy lifestyle and does not suppress my personal freedom in any way. While people are not perfect, monitoring their behavior is necessary to ensure a safe life for the world's population. It is very important to stop popularizing violence and brutality in all mass media in order to reduce people's aggressiveness. We must always and everywhere promote humanism and other moral values as a basis for saving people from various troubles and sufferings in life. And more, in some people, excessive aggressiveness is associated with an overactive aggression center in their brain. Now, thanks to the achievements of medicine, it is possible to block the center of aggression in such people. All of the above measures will help us raise good people, not fiends like Anders Behring Breivik, who killed 77 and injured more than 150 people in Norway on July 22, 2011. Or like Stefan Paddock, who shot 59 people and injured more than 500 civilians in the city of Las Vegas in the United States on October 1, 2017. The vice of excessive laziness. A lot of people suffer from the vice of excessive laziness. This vice also has biological roots. In nature, many animals mostly lie down and sleep when they are full. This is due to the fact that they spend a lot of energy on food production and they need to save it and rest to recover their strength. This behavior is genetically transmitted from animals to the ancestors of humans and from them to us. Excessive laziness brings a lot of grief to people, as it is the main cause of their poverty, ignorance, disease, crime, and other troubles. Because of laziness, some people do not want to study, work, develop comprehensively, and lead a healthy lifestyle. A lazy person is not able to enjoy useful, reasonable mental and physical labor. Therefore, such a person is always bad, and he seeks salvation and oblivion in drunkenness, drugs, debauchery, overeating, and other vices. And that makes his life even worse. Because of excessive laziness, many parents do not engage in the upbringing and education of their children. For this reason, many bosses, subordinates, judges, doctors, teachers, husbands, wives, relatives, neighbors, and other people are poorly educated and ignorant. And the health and quality of life of each person depends on them. Laziness in moderation is necessary for people to rest and recuperate. But many people do not adhere to reasonable measures, because the vice of excessive laziness also has social roots. For example, unemployment forces many people to stay out of work for a long time. Because of this, some unemployed people become lazy to such an extent that they become homeless parasites and criminals. Poor working conditions also contribute to the development of excessive laziness in people. This is due to the fact that people, when they undermine their health with sweatshop work, begin to see happiness in idleness. To prevent this from happening, it is necessary to create good working conditions for all people. In addition, people need to develop hard work from childhood so that everyone can cope with excessive laziness and enjoy a variety of useful work. People have a need to work at the genetic level, and this should be used in educating them to work hard. For example, children should be praised when they help their parents and other people in their work. If the students do not want to do the necessary work because of laziness, then they must be forced to do it in all reasonable ways. Only in this way can you teach a person from childhood to cope with laziness. This should be done without fail, as often children cannot cope with their excessive laziness on their own. At the same time, parents and teachers need to control the physical and mental loads of pupils. These loads, on the one hand, should not be excessive, so as not to overwork children and not cause them aversion to useful work. And on the other hand, pupils should engage in mental and physical activities until moderate fatigue, since such loads train and develop the brain, muscles, and other human organs. It will be easier for people to overcome laziness if they know that the main thing is to force themselves to start working. If a person forces himself to work by force of will, then after 15-20 minutes laziness will recede, and he will begin to enjoy doing reasonable activities, because his body will produce the hormones of joy, endorphins. The vice of immeasurable greed. From the vice of immeasurable greed, not only people suffer but also nature. It also has biological roots. Many animals hoard their own food in reserve for survival. For example, this is done by squirrels, beavers, and other animals that store their food for the winter. The need for hoarding was passed down genetically from animals to the ancestors of humans and from them to us. This is confirmed by observations of children who, at an early age, no one could teach money grubbing, but they do it. For example, many children save up money that their parents give them for pocket expenses, steal sweets, take toys from each other, and so on. In moderation, people need to satisfy the need for savings in order to maintain their well-being at a decent level. But many people do not adhere to reasonable measures, because the vice of immeasurable greed also has social roots. This is due to the fact that people who live in poverty see happiness primarily in excessive enrichment. The development of the vice of immeasurable greed in people is also promoted by many mass media, which constantly promote that only through excessive consumption can a person become happy. This leads to the fact that some people wanting to become rich commit various crimes. They steal, engage in robberies, corruption, cybercrime, drug trafficking, destroy nature, unleash various conflicts and wars. And there are people who, for the sake of excessive enrichment, falsify medicines, food, and consumer goods. They poison many people with such low-quality goods and send them to the next world without a pore. It is obvious that all people need to effectively fight the vice of immeasurable greed in order not to suffer from it. I'll explain how best to do this later. The vice of sexual promiscuity. Many people also suffer from the vice of sexual promiscuity. Sex is necessary for people to prolong childbirth, health, and pleasure. But some people do not adhere to reasonable measures and seek to sleep with the greatest number of sexual partners or engage in various sexual perversions in order to get as much pleasure from sex as possible. Such behavior of people has not only biological nature but also social roots. For example, various sources of information constantly promote that a person's happiness is in excessive sex. Therefore, many people do not want to believe that this vice impairs their mental and physical abilities and makes them stupid and sick. After all, engaging in excessive sex, people undermine their immune system. Because of this, they are seriously ill and die prematurely in agony from cancer, AIDS, and other diseases. And more, scientists have found that women who often changed sexual partners, they had pelvic diseases. Because of this, such women suffer from lower abdominal pain, increased body temperature, unpleasant vaginal discharge, and chlamydia, which is the main cause of infertility in women. Information from the video on the YouTube channel about the most important thing. Arthritis of the hands, adnexitis. Broadcast on October 10 and 11, 2022 Russia 1 from 57 minutes. Some people, in order to satisfy their hypertrophied sexual needs, rape and kill their victims. Because of sexual promiscuity, families break up, because when the spouses catch each other in infidelity, they often get divorced. They themselves, their children and relatives suffer from this. It also happens that some people, after learning about the betrayal of a loved one, beat him, maim, and even kill him. For example, in Europe, 1 in 3 murders is committed out of jealousy. When people accuse their beloved sexual partner of cheating, they experience unbearable pain. From this, many people get seriously ill and die without a pore. And there are people who, in order to satisfy their insatiable sexual needs, become child abusers and commit other crimes. It is obvious that people should restrain their desire to have sex without measure so as not to commit crimes, not to destroy their health, and not to suffer from other troubles. This is especially true for teenagers, because they have hypertrophied sexual needs at this age and they tend to commit various crimes because of this. Therefore, it is very important that before their puberty, adolescents receive proper sexual education and upbringing. Thanks to the modern level of scientific and technological progress, now people can use different gadgets that are offered in sex shops to satisfy their sexual needs. For example, in China, they make sex robots to meet the sexual needs of different people. Information from the video on the YouTube channel Sex Robots 2025: How is China Changing the Sex Industry? Such sex robots are useful for the world's population, as they will help solve many problems of people. 1. They will protect you from sexually transmitted diseases. 2. Help a person with hypersexuality. 3. Save people from sexual crimes. 4. Prevent family breakups due to infidelities, jealousy, and different sexual temperaments. 4. Eliminate sexual slavery and prostitution, as prostitutes and prostitutes in brothels will be replaced by sex robots. Vices of drunkenness and drug addiction. A lot of grief is brought to people by the vices of drunkenness and drug addiction. They also have first of all biological roots. It is established that many animals consume narcotic plants and products containing alcohol. This leads them to bad consequences as such animals become easy prey for predators. A significant case of animal drunkenness occurred in October 1991 in southern Sri Lanka. There in one village, an elephant found a barrel of moonshine, drank it, and in a drunken frenzy began to destroy everything in its path. He broke down buildings, maimed, and killed people until he fell into a deep hole and crashed. The need to consume alcohol and drugs from animals was genetically transmitted to the ancestors of humans and from them to us. But in our country, the vices of drunkenness and drug addiction also have social roots, since the use of alcohol and drugs has become a tradition among many peoples. In addition, some people use alcohol and drugs to enjoy the intoxication and drug buzz. There are also people who use alcohol and drugs for grief, idleness, melancholy, depression, and stress relief. The prosperity of these vices is promoted by alcohol and tobacco manufacturers, who constantly promote in the media that smoking and drinking alcohol is cool. They do this in order to get maximum profits from the sale of their products. All this goes sideways for drinkers, smokers, and drug users. Such people destroy their immunity and die prematurely from various diseases. In addition, people who are intoxicated with alcohol and drugs are killed and maimed in car accidents, fires, and other accidents at home and at work. Alcohol kills more than 3 million people worldwide every year. Tobacco smoking causes the death of about 7 million people a year. WHO data for 2024. When people smoke, use alcohol and drugs, they give birth to seriously ill children, families are destroyed, and many children become orphans with living parents. In addition, people who are intoxicated commit the most crimes because they lose the ability to control their behavior. Drunkards and drug addicts often steal, rob, commit other crimes, and even kill innocent people to get their next dose of alcohol or drugs. Scientists have proven that there are no safe doses of alcohol and drugs. Scientific studies have shown that the daily consumption of alcohol by a person, even in small amounts, which were previously considered useful for the prevention of cardiovascular diseases, actually destroys health. This is due to the fact that such alcohol consumption causes atrial fibrillation in people, breast cancer in women, accelerates the destruction of brain cells, liver, and other organs. This is what Professor Eduard Yakupov says in a video posted on the YouTube channel, Does Alcohol Heal the Heart and Blood Vessels? The doctor reveals the truth about alcohol. A person who uses alcohol and drugs has a severely weakened immune system. For this reason, he is often ill, unwell, and suffers from depression and chronic fatigue. To prevent this from happening, people must force themselves to refrain from satisfying these vices. For example, if a person stops drinking alcohol, then in 2 to 3 weeks his liver begins to recover and sleep is normalized. After 2 to 3 months, blood pressure and pulse stabilize, the gastrointestinal tract improves, brain activity normalizes, depression recedes, and mood returns. After 6 months, a person's immune system is strengthened, so he stops being sick often. After a year, a non-drinker's liver is almost completely restored. The risk of strokes, heart attacks, and other diseases is reduced almost twice. Information from the video on the YouTube channel, What Will Happen to the Body Without Alcohol? Psychiater Vasilishnerov. Obviously, many people will not be able to immediately completely abandon the use of alcoholic beverages. Such people need to force themselves first to at least not drink alcohol more often than once every 2 weeks, since the human body is cleansed of toxic alcohol breakdown products for about 14 days. Therefore, a person needs time to get rid of the alcoholic poisons that poison him. In addition, frequent use of alcohol, even in small doses, leads many people to alcoholism. This is due to the fact that for the high-quality work of the human nervous system, his body produces its own alcohol in small quantities. This alcohol is necessary for a person to have a good connection between nerve cells, since it is part of the neurotransmitters in the synapses. When a person begins to consume alcoholic beverages daily, even in small doses, then his body ceases to produce its own alcohol, which is necessary for the normal functioning of the nervous system. Such a person begins to suffer greatly from the poor functioning of all his organs and can even die if he does not drink alcohol. To restore his nervous system, he is forced to drink alcohol. So a person becomes addicted to alcoholic beverages and he becomes a patient with alcoholism. And more, some people are genetically predisposed to diseases such as alcoholism and drug addiction. So when they start using alcohol and drugs, they become alcoholics and drug addicts. Such unfortunate people need to be treated for these diseases forcibly in special institutions, since many of them do not want to be treated voluntarily. For those who cannot recover from alcoholism and drug addiction, it is necessary to create social treatment shelters where they can more easily tolerate these diseases under the supervision of specialists. Such measures are necessary so that people suffering from alcoholism and drug addiction suffer less themselves and do not interfere with the good life of other people. The vice of excessive nationalism. People also suffer from the vice of excessive nationalism, which also has first of all a biological nature, since it is based on the animal instinct friend or foe. Many animals lead a group or herd lifestyle. So it is easier for them to get food, defend themselves from enemies, protect their territory, rob and kill other animals, even their own kind, but from other groups. The friend or foe instinct was genetically transmitted from animals to the ancestors of humans and from them to us, and is the main reason for excessive nationalism in many peoples. In humans, this vice also has social roots. This is due to the fact that some people seek to make their nation the most important in their region and even in the world in order to dominate and exploit other peoples. Therefore, such people, instead of maintaining a reasonable patriotism for the diversity of cultures in the world, become Nazis, racists, and fascists. Because of this, terrible tragedies have occurred all over the world throughout the entire historical development of mankind. So the main causes of the Second World War, in which hundreds of millions of people died and suffered, were Nazism, racism, and fascism in Germany, Italy, Japan, and other countries of the world. Where there is excessive nationalism, there is always hostility between peoples, because one nation considers itself better than another. In all the troubles, the Nazis blame people of a different nationality, faith, or race. For this reason, interethnic, racial, interstate conflicts and wars have constantly occurred and continue to occur, in which millions of people have died and are dying. Because of the Nazis, many people become refugees, sick, crippled beggars, and orphans. It is obvious that Nazism must be eradicated in all countries of the world, so that people do not suffer from excessive nationalism. But this can only be achieved when people all over the world stop living in poverty and backwardness and become well-mannered and educated. And this will be possible if people meet the 17 goals of sustainable human development in all countries of the world. I'll talk about this a little later. Other vices. We examined only the main vices that people suffer the most from. But there are many more of them, and they are all closely related to the vices that were discussed above. For example, the vices of theft, corruption, and deception are associated with immeasurable greed and excessive laziness of people. After all, some people steal, take bribes, and engage in fraud to get rich and not work. And there are criminals who rob, maim, and kill people in order to enjoy violence, debauchery, and wealth. Therefore, if people are able and willing to contain the vices that we have already discussed, they will be able to cope with other vices. For example, with such as excessive selfishness, pride, envy, malice, anger, greed, betrayal, an immense thirst for fame and power, vanity, and other vices. All these vices a person needs to constantly restrain and suppress in himself. People should do this without fail, so that when they feel good, it doesn't get bad soon, and when they feel bad, it gets better faster. At the same time, the main means of combating vices should be reasonable, diverse, and useful work of each person. Labor. Why is it only through intelligent work that people can successfully overcome their vices, achieve prosperity, stop wars, and make their lives happy? First, because if people don't do anything, their lives won't get any better. Secondly, from useful mental and physical labor, a person can get much more joy than from vices, which lead people to many troubles. It is proven that when a person is engaged in a variety of reasonable and useful activities, his body produces hormones of joy, endorphins. And since endorphins in such people are produced by their own body, they do not destroy their immunity as the joys of drinking, smoking, drug use, and other vices, but strengthen their health. Without the joys of life, people do not live comfortably. Therefore, they should be able to enjoy their reasonable, diverse, useful activities in order to replace the joys of vices with them. Now, thanks to automation, computerization, and robotization of workplaces, it is possible to create comfortable working conditions for working people everywhere so that they can enjoy their useful and intelligent activities. If people are not spared from harmful work, they will not stop looking for pleasure in a depraved way of life and will continue to suffer from vices, wars, and other troubles. Third, only a well-bred and educated person is able to restrain his vices, get joy from reasonable activities, and live happily. A person can also become such a person only through his work for the benefit of his comprehensive development. Fourth, some people fight, steal, rob, cheat, kill, and commit other crimes to get out of poverty. Thanks to their work, a person will be able to provide themselves with a decent well-being. Then he will not lead an immoral life to get out of poverty. Fifth, for their healthy and active longevity, a person needs to constantly engage in feasible mental and physical work, since such activities strengthen the immune system and promote the production of endorphins in their body. Thanks to such work, a person will not suffer from dementia, depression, and other diseases. In addition, with a reasonable variety of feasible activities in the cells of the human body, mitochondria begin to work more actively. This helps to increase energy in the human body and saves it from chronic fatigue. 6. No one is immune from various troubles in life. For example, such as environmental disasters, unrequited love, the death of loved ones, and other problems. In such situations, a person tolerates various troubles more easily if he is engaged in a variety of reasonable and feasible activities, since work and time are the best healers. For example, it is proven that stress, if not quickly eliminated, destroys human health and leads to premature death. Effectively and quickly overcome stress can only be constantly engaged in reasonable activities. From all the above, it is obvious that a person can get rid of vices, wars, and other troubles, as well as make his life happy only if he engages in reasonable and useful work. But then, if all people seek happiness in useful work, reasonable consumption, and a healthy lifestyle, then there will be an overproduction of goods and services. And this will lead to the closure of many businesses and an increase in unemployment. Millions of people in different countries are already suffering from unemployment. According to the International Labour Organization, there were more than 180 million unemployed people in the world in 2024. It is obvious that we need to solve the problem of unemployment so that people can make their lives better thanks to their work. But in order to successfully solve the problem of unemployment, it is necessary to understand that the main cause of unemployment is the law of overproduction. On the law of overproduction. The law of overproduction is that one person, thanks to his work, is able to produce material goods much more than he needs for a happy life. The amount of overproduction depends on the climate, natural resources, scientific, technical, socio-economic, and cultural development of the country where people live and work. Also, the amount of overproduction depends on the level of consumption of people, their education, upbringing, hard work, and health. Now, thanks to automation, robotization, and computerization of labor, one person produces so many goods that they can provide many people. For example, in the developed world, one farmer, using modern technologies, produces food that can feed hundreds of people. All this is primarily due to the law of overproduction, which exists in the world due to nature itself. So if you sow 1 grain of wheat, then from it grows a plant in which there are 60 times more grains. In addition, nature has provided humanity with minerals, fertile lands, the energy of the sun, wind, and water, and a rich animal and plant world. Thanks to all this, as well as the work and creativity of people, the constant scientific and technological progress of mankind, the production of goods is growing faster than their reasonable consumption. First of all, because of this, there is an overproduction of various goods. For this reason, many businesses are closing, the unemployment rate is rising, and people's lives are deteriorating. To prevent this from happening, people urgently need to start actively implementing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity in all countries of the world. Only this will make it possible to provide the entire world's population with useful work, successfully solve the problem of unemployment, and improve people's lives. On the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for Humanity. At the UN Summit, which took place on September 25-27, 2015 in New York, the leaders of 193 countries of the world approved 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity. They are as follows. 1. Universal eradication of poverty in all its forms. 2. Eliminate hunger, ensure food security and nutrition, and promote sustainable agricultural development. 3. Ensure a healthy lifestyle and promote well-being for all at all ages. 4. Ensure an inclusive and equitable quality of education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. 5. Promote gender equality and empower all women and girls. 6. Ensure the availability and rational use of water resources and sanitation for all. 7. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy sources for all. 8. Promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. 9. Build a strong infrastructure for inclusive and sustainable industrialization and innovation. 10. Reducing inequality within and between countries. 11. Ensuring the openness, security, resilience, and sustainability of cities and human settlements. 12. Ensuring rational consumption and production patterns. 13. Take urgent action to address climate change and its impacts. 14. Conservation and sustainable use of the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. 15. Protection and restoration of terrestrial ecosystems and promotion of their rational use. Sustainable forest management, combating desertification, stopping and reversing land degradation, and ending the loss of biological diversity. 16. Promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Ensure access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. 17. Strengthening the means of sustainable development and enhancing the global partnership for sustainable development mechanisms. It is obvious that without the implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, people will not stop suffering from wars, social, economic, environmental crises, and catastrophes anywhere else. I will continue to refer to these goals as SDGs. Therefore, the SDGs should be implemented in all countries of the world. This will require the work of the entire population of the Earth. This will keep all people engaged in useful work to get rid of unemployment and improve their lives. After all, if you do not solve the problems of unemployment, welfare, ecology, quality education, and upbringing of the population in all countries of the world, then ignorant, immoral, poor, and sick people will not live well on their own and will not let others. This is due to the fact that in the modern world, no one can protect themselves from various infectious diseases, cybercriminals, terrorists, counterfeit and substandard goods, as well as other socio-economic and environmental crises and catastrophes. For example, the loss of people from cybercriminals alone reached more than $1 trillion in 2024. Cybercrime is especially dangerous now, when billions of people use smartphones and other computer equipment in their daily lives, and many countries have moved or are moving to the digital economy. There is no escape from cybercriminals because they are able to overcome any defenses. The only way out of this situation is for all the peoples of the world to meet the 17 goals of sustainable human development. After all, only by fulfilling the SDGs will people become well-mannered and educated, get rid of poverty, excessive greed, and other vices. Such people will not need to engage in cybercrime or commit other crimes, because they will seek happiness not in vices, but in useful, intelligent activities and a healthy lifestyle. The implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity should become a common main goal for the entire world's population. Such a global goal will help unite all the peoples of the world, which will help to stop hostility and wars between them. Without this, it is impossible to achieve the SDGs in all countries, because people are not up to solving all these tasks when there are interstate, interethnic, inter-religious, economic, information wars, and other conflicts. When all the countries of the world unite to implement the 17 goals of sustainable development of mankind and stop hostility among themselves, the world's population will have enormous means to solve many of their problems. This is due to the fact that if all the peoples on Earth live peacefully, they will not need to spend huge amounts of money on maintaining their armies and the arms race. According to the International Peace Research Institute, the military expenditures of mankind in 2021 amounted to about $2 trillion, and in 2024 they reached $3 trillion. But accelerated arming of many countries is not enough to stop wars. On the contrary, the arms race provokes various military conflicts. But the implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity will help stop wars all over the world. Moreover, if such huge funds that countries spend on armaments are directed to the implementation of the 17 SDGs, then the life of each of us will become better in the near future. In many countries, it is necessary to solve the problems of welfare, education, and upbringing of people, health, ecology, and many other tasks. For example, just to achieve the 15th goal of sustainable human development, millions of people will need to work. Let me remind you of this goal: protection and restoration of terrestrial ecosystems and promotion of their rational use. Rational forest management, combating desertification. Stopping and reversing land degradation and ending the loss of biological diversity. People involved in implementing the SDGs should be paid decent salaries. All this will help to get rid of unemployment, poverty, and misery for many people. There is a lot of work to be done for the development of poor countries that have been destroyed by wars, economic crises, climate, and man-made disasters. Without the development of such countries, their populations will suffer on their own and will not allow anyone in the world to live well. This is due to the fact that backward states will be constant sources of disease, crime, terrorism, and refugees. So in 2024, there were about 123 million refugees in the world. This shameful phenomenon of our time affects both the refugees themselves and the population of the countries to which they are fleeing. The problem of refugees can be solved if developed countries help the population of countries where the poor are fleeing to meet the 17 SDGs. Then people in such countries will live well, and they will not have to flee from poverty, wars, and other troubles to developed countries. Many unemployed people around the world can find work in developing countries to engage in useful work for a decent salary and help local populations meet the 17 SDGs faster. Such work should be funded by both the states themselves and global charitable organizations, since poor countries do not have enough of their own funds for this. The UN should create a special fund to which developed countries and rich people would transfer the necessary funds for the implementation of the 17 SDGs all over the world. A good example was set by Bill Gates. Starting in May 2025, it will spend $200 billion of its money over 20 years to fight disease and poverty in the world. In addition, it is essential that the populations of all countries themselves meet the SDGs. For example, Belarus, despite the sanctions, consistently follows the Global Sustainable Development Agenda. It was among the first to integrate the UN Sustainable Development Goals into a national strategy with a focus on human capital, sustainable economy, environmental balance, and digital transformation. Sanctions make it very difficult for countries to implement the SDGs. Therefore, there is an urgent need to lift all sanctions on all countries that prevent them from meeting the SDGs. It is absolutely necessary to prohibit the introduction of such sanctions against all peoples of the world forever, since it is impossible for anyone to implement the UN Sustainable Development Goals with them. If this is not done, it will not be possible to stop wars and make people's lives happy. All 17 Sustainable Development Goals need to be implemented comprehensively. This is due to the fact that if ignorant and immoral people are provided with good welfare, they will lead a parasitic and vicious lifestyle. From this, they will suffer themselves and will not let anyone live well. On the other hand, if educated and well-behaved people do not have decent well-being and good living conditions, they will suffer from poverty, disease, and other ills. It is very important to establish a system for monitoring the expenditure of funds allocated for the implementation of the SDGs in different countries, so that immoral and ignorant people do not steal them. It is clear that without achieving the 17 SDGs, people will never be happy. But for people to live happily, they need to meet not only the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity, but also lead a reasonable, healthy lifestyle themselves. About a reasonable way of life of people and SDGs. Life is given to a person by his parents. Therefore, it is very important that the father and mother of the child have a decent well-being, love each other, and lead a morally healthy lifestyle. Without this, they will not be able to give birth to healthy children, raise and train them well. This is due to the fact that when people poison themselves with alcohol, smoking, drugs, live in poverty, unsanitary conditions, poor ecology, eat low-quality products, use toxic household chemicals, and are treated with counterfeit medicines, they give birth to cripples. Therefore, for the sake of giving birth to healthy children, it is necessary to eliminate the causes of poisoning of people as quickly as possible and improve their living conditions. and this can be done only by implementing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity in all countries of the world. A person is born with both good and bad inclinations. Therefore, the main task of education is to teach a person from childhood to restrain his vices and to develop everything good as much as possible in him. The parenting methods that we have already discussed above will help parents and teachers do this successfully. A person from childhood must be taught to reasonable consumption. To do this, he must constantly explain that it is impossible to engage in immeasurable greed, since huge funds and resources will be spent not for the benefit of people and nature, but to the detriment. Children take an example first of all from their parents. Therefore, in order for children not to suffer from poor upbringing, mothers and fathers themselves must lead a moral and healthy lifestyle. But, unfortunately, the morals of many parents, as well as their well-being and ability to properly raise their children, are still not at the proper level. Therefore, it is not necessary to rely on the fact that all parents will raise and educate their children well. Therefore, the main role in the upbringing and education of children should be assumed by state educational institutions, where qualified teachers and educators work. Professional teachers should determine the best abilities of each pupil, since children have different abilities from birth, since they do not have the same brain structure. Information from the video on the YouTube channel, How the Brain of a Genius Works. Sergei Savliev Lecture 2024. Having determined the abilities of a pupil, teachers and parents will be able to better develop a person purposefully from childhood. Thanks to this, a person will be able to realize himself more fully in life and live happily. It is very important for a person to be fully developed and healthy so as not to suffer in life. For this reason, in addition to education, he must also engage in various types of arts and physical education from childhood. To do this, teachers of dance, singing, drawing, playing various musical instruments, theater teachers and coaches in various sports should work with children in educational institutions. Thanks to this, a person will learn from childhood to enjoy many reasonable activities and will not seek pleasure in vices. In addition, it will help a person to lead a healthy lifestyle, and changing the occupation actively relax, do not overwork, and do not suffer from boredom and melancholy. Parents and caregivers should teach a person hard work from childhood and prepare him well for family and social life. Thanks to their hard work, a person will be able to provide themselves with a decent well-being. Such well-being should be without excesses so that a person does not destroy his health and nature with his immeasurable greed. For example, according to hygiene standards, about 20 square meters of living space is enough for a person to live comfortably. Apartments with a larger living area per person, especially palaces and mansions, require very large financial, energy and material costs. Such huge funds and resources should be directed not to luxury, but to the implementation of the 17 goals of sustainable development of mankind, to self-improvement and health promotion in order to live happily. When a person is ready for family life, he should enter into a monogamous love marriage. Other types of marriages do not contribute to a happy family life due to jealousy and hostility of the spouses to each other. A husband and wife need to be engaged in their well-being, health and self-improvement all their lives. This is due to the fact that only well-rounded spouses with a good level of well-being are able to live in peace and harmony, since they will not torment each other with ignorance, immorality, infidelity, poverty and various diseases. Such married couples will be able to give birth to 2 or 3 healthy children and raise them well. With such childbearing, the spouses will enjoy their children and fulfill their duty to maintain the population of the earth at the proper level. It is very important for a person to observe moral norms of behavior so as not to suffer from various troubles. Many peoples have long developed reasonable rules of behavior for humans. They are as follows: 1. Do as much good as possible and don't go on a rampage. 2. Work for your own well-being and the betterment of life on earth. 3. Honor your parents and help them. 4. Do not kill and do not allow killing. 5. Do not debauch, do not cheat, do not betray. 6. Do not steal, do not covet other people's property. 7. Do not slander, do not bear false witness, do not insult, do not humiliate anyone. 8. Do to people what you want them to do to you. So, in order for a person not to feel bad, but to feel good, he must restrain his vices, develop comprehensively, and work for the benefit of fulfilling the 17 goals of sustainable development of mankind. Thanks to this, he will enjoy life from good well-being, useful work, creativity, knowledge, various types of arts, physical education, nature, love, family communication with friends, active recreation, and other reasonable activities. Such a person will stop looking for pleasure or salvation from a bad life in vices and suffer from them. This is about the way of life a person needs to lead in order to live happily. If people continue to lead a vicious lifestyle, they will never stop suffering from vices, wars, and other troubles. In other words, a person should lead the lifestyle suggested above so that when he feels bad, he can quickly make his life better, and when he feels good, so that he does not soon begin to live badly. About the immortal souls of people. Many people know that vices cause more grief than joy, but they still seek pleasure in them. This is due to the fact that such people live one day, and after them at least a flood. I knew a man who smoked and got lung cancer. Doctors operated on him and treated him for a long time so that he could live with dignity. Instead of strengthening his immune system with a healthy lifestyle, he continued to smoke and died in agony. And there are a lot of people who destroy themselves for the pleasure of vices. It is obvious that just because of the fear of getting sick and dying prematurely in pain, many people will not stop looking for joy in vices. Therefore, in order for people to force themselves to lead a moral, useful, healthy lifestyle, they must know that if they live immorally, then even with death their suffering will not stop. This is due to the fact that a person consists not only of a physical body, but also of an immortal soul, which after his death is embodied in a new body. Many people don't know much about immortal souls and their incarnations in new bodies. So I will tell you everything that is known about it so far. The soul is an energy, informational substance located in a person. Without souls, human life is impossible. As yet, there are no instruments that can scientifically prove the existence of immortal souls. But once upon a time, scientists couldn't measure infrared radiation and the electromagnetic field. No, they do. The time will come, and we will begin to confirm the existence of human souls not only with our own sensations, but also with super-sensitive devices that will be created by scientists. Some scientists are already confirming the reality of the existence of immortal souls. For example, neuroscientist Stuart Hamerofer and Nobel Prize-winning mathematician Roger Penrose argue that a person has a soul, and it is immortal. In the video films posted on the YouTube channel, scientists are shocked. Quantum physics has proved the afterlife and life after death is real. The soul exists. The irrefutable evidence of quantum physics, Stuart and Roger prove it. They say that the human brain works like a quantum computer that collects and stores information. It is this information that is what many people have called the soul since ancient times. The soul after the death of a person continues to live as an information and energy structure not tied to the body. Hamerofer and Penrose argue that the soul is made of subtle matter and quantum information, and it cannot be destroyed. It is eternal in nature, and there is no conflict between physics and faith. There is much evidence that immortal souls exist and are reincarnated in new bodies. Even Origen of Alexandria, who lived from 254 to 185 B., set out in his treatise on the principles the doctrine of the incarnation of immortal souls. He wrote about the soul: if the soul had no previous existence, then why is a child born blind, since it is sinless? Why the torment of childhood, bad mother, bad relatives, nasty neighbors? It is the sins of the past that catch up with us, and according to the results of previous existences, each soul is rewarded according to its merits. And really, why do some people live relatively well while others constantly suffer and suffer from various troubles? It is obvious that this is how people pay not only for the evil that they commit in this life, but also for the crimes that they committed in past incarnations of their immortal souls. The fact that immortal souls are reincarnated in new bodies of people, and this is the reincarnation of souls, is proved by cases when some children remember their past lives. For example, in 1990, an expedition of Czechoslovak archaeologists working in India decided to verify the story of a boy who claimed that in a previous life he was killed at the age of 27 by 2 shots to the chest. The boy even showed the place where he was buried then. When archaeologists unearthed a grave that had never been opened before, they found a human skeleton in it. When examining the remains of a buried person, archaeologists found 2 bullets in the chest. This and many other similar cases can be reasonably explained only by the fact that immortal souls exist and are reincarnated in new bodies. Convincing facts about the existence of immortal souls can be found on the internet. The reincarnation of immortal souls has been recognized and is recognized by many worldviews and religions in the world. Even the Christian religion accepted the doctrine of the reincarnation of immortal souls until the Fifth Ecumenical Council abolished it in 543. The belief in the immortality of souls and their transformation into new bodies is very important for people. After all, people who do not believe in the immortality of their souls often lead a criminal and vicious lifestyle. Such people live one day, and after them at least later, because they do not know that for their sins they will be severely punished, both in this life and in future incarnations of their immortal souls. The fact that the belief in the immortality of our souls and their reincarnation is necessary for all of us is confirmed by such an example from life. My neighbor led an immoral lifestyle and suffered from various troubles. I gave her my book, What We Should Do to Live Happily Ever After, to read. After a while, I noticed that my neighbor was behaving better. When I asked her, "What influenced your behavior?" she answered me, "I have studied the worldview set forth in your book and realized that the main cause of my troubles is the vicious lifestyle that I led. And I led this lifestyle because I thought I only lived once. So I wanted to have time for my life to get as much joy as possible from vices, because they are the easiest to get pleasure from. Now I force myself to restrain my vices and lead a reasonable, useful, healthy lifestyle in order to stop suffering and improve the fate of my immortal soul." These examples show that as long as a person does not think about his life now and does not care about the fate of his immortal soul, he will not stop leading a vicious lifestyle. Only when people understand that with death all their suffering will not stop, only then will they force themselves to restrain their vices and begin to lead a reasonable, useful, healthy lifestyle. This will allow people to improve their destiny both in this life and in future incarnations of their immortal souls. What are people in the world for, and what is the highest meaning of life? When people meet the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity, the law of overproduction will mean that many people will not have enough sensible, useful work. For this reason, millions of people will become unemployed and suffer from idleness. In addition, some people even now, having reached a high level of their comprehensive development and decent well-being, feel bad from the fact that they no longer see the meaning of their lives. Because of this, they have a so-called midlife crisis. Therefore, such people begin to lead a vicious lifestyle in order to save themselves from depression, which occurs in them from ignorance of the higher meaning of life. After all, a person at the genetic level has a need to know why he lives in this world. Not knowing this meaning of life, many people suffer from cognitive dissonance that occurs in their brain, and they suffer from it. Based on all of the above, humanity needs a worldview that, firstly, would encourage people to lead a moral, useful, healthy lifestyle. Secondly, thanks to which the entire population of the earth could always provide themselves with constant reasonable work, so as not to suffer from idleness. After all, with the further scientific, technical, socio-economic, and cultural progress of mankind, it is impossible to solve the problem of ensuring intelligent activity for all people without knowing what we are needed for in the universe. About extra people, watch the video on the YouTube channel George Maletsky, Artificial Intelligence and Extra People. Third, we need a worldview for which people will stop the wars and their insatiable consumption, because of which they destroy themselves and nature. Fourth, we need such a worldview thanks to which every person would know the highest meaning of life and understand what he lives for and what he needs in this world. This will help many people not suffer from cognitive dissonance and many other problems that prevent them from living a good life. I will now outline this worldview. First, let's look at why the Big Bang Theory, which claims the formation of our universe from a small point, is wrong. Some scientists claim that the universe is not eternal, but was formed from a microscopic size due to the Big Bang, which is unknown how and why. Such a theory is unscientific firstly, because a huge universe could not have emerged from a very small volume, no matter what explosion occurred. Second, the Big Bang Theory was invented by astrophysicists after the Hubble astronomer published the results of measurements of the redshift of light in the 20th century. He got them by observing galaxies and space objects that were located at different distances from him. Based on these measurements, some scientists have concluded that the observed galaxies are moving away from Earth. So they decided the universe was expanding. And if the universe is expanding, then it was formed from something very small and began to increase due to the Big Bang. These scientists made such erroneous conclusions since they were based on the fact that in space the redshift of light occurs only due to an increase in the distance from the object of observation to the observer. But the redshift of light is also due to the density of space that light travels from the object of observation to the Earth. For example, if light travels the same distance through water and air, then the redshift of light will be much greater when it travels through water than air. Now it is proved that interstellar and intergalactic space is not a void, but an environment filled with gravitational and electromagnetic fields and waves, various radiations, elementary particles, gas and dust clouds, and other matter. It is due to the fact that outer space is not empty and there is first of all a redshift of light, and not from the fact that the universe is expanding with acceleration. Third, according to the Big Bang Theory, all the galaxies in the universe should fly apart. But for example, the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda Nebula are converging. And astronomers have already found many such converging galaxies in the universe. Fourth, proponents of the Big Bang Theory claim that the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate. Therefore, the pressure in it must constantly decrease. But this is not happening. Fifth, the Big Bang Theory is based on the cosmic inflation hypothesis. This idea that in the very first trillionth of a second, the very fabric of space swelled up faster than the speed of light. As a result, it turned into our universe. But so far, the cosmic inflation hypothesis does not have a single confirmed prediction indicating the actual almost instantaneous expansion of the universe. Information from the video on the YouTube channel, The Creepy Basement of Science. Wild hypotheses that you don't want to believe from 10 minutes of the video. And there are a lot of such inconsistencies in the Big Bang Theory. Therefore, there is no reason to consider it true. Moreover, the Big Bang Theory is refuted by data obtained thanks to the James Webb Telescope. You can find out about this on the YouTube channel from the videos Roger Penrose. Time has no beginning, and the Big Bang isn't true. Time doesn't exist. James Webb proved us wrong from 17 minutes, the Big Bang is a lie. James Webb found galaxies that shouldn't exist from 7 minutes 20 seconds. Many scientists do not accept the Big Bang Theory. For example, Vasily Minkowski has long proved the fallacy of this theory in his scientific work General Theory of Space. You can find out about it on the internet on the YouTube channel from the video by Vasily Minkowski Refutation of the Big Bang Theory and the Expansion of Space. The theory that explains the formation of the universe with the Big Bang is very harmful for every person, because it does not answer the question of why intelligent people and all of humanity are needed on Earth and in the entire universe. Without a true knowledge of what we all live for and what we need in this world, it is impossible to stop wars, carry out the progressive development of humanity, constantly improve people and live happily. Therefore, we need a worldview that will help people stop suffering from various troubles and make their lives happy. There is such a worldview. It is as follows. The universe is eternal. It consists of billions of stars, star systems, and other formations, as well as interstellar space, which is filled with energy, various fields, radiation, elementary particles, and other matter. On the habitable planets of some star systems, intelligent civilizations live, which are at different levels of their development. The universe exists forever thanks to the stars, their other formations, interstellar space, and the constant cycle of matter and energy in it. When stars and other objects in the universe run out of energy, they die. Instead, they form new stars with planets, as well as other objects of the universe that are necessary for its eternity. On some planets of new star systems, favorable conditions are created for the development of biological life. Highly developed civilizations that are closest to such planets contribute to the emergence of many types of microorganisms, plants, animals, and intelligent people on them. Intelligent people created by extraterrestrials on new planets develop to the level of highly developed civilizations and also begin to maintain eternal life in the universe on their own part of the universe. This is what we will do when the Earth's civilization reaches a very high level of development. It is in maintaining eternal life in an eternal universe that the highest meaning of the life of intelligent people lies. In other words, the universe exists forever for life, and intelligent people to maintain eternal life in it on their part of the universe and live happily. Let's look at how the solar system was formed, life on Earth arose, and the development of humanity took place. Scientists have determined that about 4 or 5 billion years ago a gas and dust cloud in the Milky Way galaxy in the universe formed the solar system with the Earth and other planets. Approximately 3–5 billion years ago, the Earth created conditions for the development of biological life on it. Since life in the universe exists forever, it was brought to Earth in various forms by comets, meteorites, and alien civilizations. Thanks to evolution and highly developed alien civilizations, hundreds of thousands of species of microorganisms, about 500,000 plant species, and more than 2 million animal species have appeared on our planet. From the great apes on Earth, aliens created intelligent people. They did it through genetic engineering, or other methods that we don't know about yet. So on Earth there were people with the body of an animal, with consciousness and an immortal soul of cosmic origin. Extraterrestrials have genetically programmed people to constantly develop comprehensively so that when they reach a very high level of development, they can be engaged in maintaining eternal life in the universe. Thanks to this, humanity has constantly developed and reached the modern level of socio-economic, scientific, technical, and cultural progress. All this huge path of development of the Earth's civilization is not poorly researched by scientists and is described in textbooks, popular science books, and films. For example, anyone can learn about the history of the development of life on Earth and people on it by watching the video The History of the Earth in 2 hours on the internet on the YouTube channel. Therefore, I will not discuss in detail the entire period of development of life and humanity on our planet. But why don't highly developed intelligent civilizations themselves settle on new habitable planets, but create intelligent people from animals that already live on them? First, this is due to the fact that extraterrestrials cannot adapt well to the conditions of life on alien planets. Because of this, they cannot live comfortably on them, work productively, and maintain eternal life in the universe. For this reason, extraterrestrials created intelligent people on Earth from great apes, which are well adapted to the conditions of life on our planet. Thanks to this, the Earth's civilization developed well and reached the modern level of scientific, technical, socio-economic, and cultural progress. Secondly, to maintain eternal life in the universe, it is more rational to create new intelligent civilizations on habitable planets than to spread one even very highly developed throughout the universe. Third, extraterrestrials are not able to move harmlessly over vast distances between planets, star systems, and galaxies. Therefore, Advanced civilizations send robots with artificial intelligence to new planets which they create. Such robots contribute to the development of life on suitable planets, the appearance of intelligent people on them, and help the population of these planets to carry out progressive development. Humanity will also create such robots. And when people reach a very high level of their development, they will use such robots to fulfill their mission in their own part of the universe, so that they themselves can live happily. Thanks to the proposed worldview, people will always be provided with useful activities and will not suffer from idleness, vices, wars, and meaningless life. Robots with artificial intelligence are already being created in some developed countries of the world. And Elon Musk plans to create a test site on Mars to conduct an experiment on the development of life on this planet. About religions and God. Many people have a very important place in their lives occupied by religion and faith in God. So in the early 20s of the 21st century, there were more than 400 religions in the world. About 85% of people on Earth have identified themselves as believers. Therefore, all people who profess different religions and worldviews need to live in peace and harmony on Earth so that hostility between them stops and there are no wars. To do this, we all need to realize that all peace-loving religions are needed in our world. After all, many people, nations, and states are at different stages and levels of their development. Therefore, depending on the upbringing, education, welfare, traditions, scientific, technical, socio-economic, and cultural development of different countries and peoples, people believe in what corresponds to their level of worldview. Even atheism, based on materialism, is the belief that the universe came into being by chance, that there is no higher meaning, and that God does not exist. Everyone has the right to believe or disbelieve in God. For example, I believe that God is the supreme collective consciousness of all highly developed intelligent civilizations that exist in the universe. This higher consciousness permeates the entire universe and contributes to the development of eternal life in the eternal universe for the benefit of the happiness of intelligent people. The main thing is that different religions and worldviews do not call people to hate each other, violence, terrorism, and wars, but contribute to the implementation of the 17 goals of sustainable development of humanity on Earth for the benefit of every sane person. Without this, it is impossible to stop wars and make people's lives happy. Resume 1. Until all the people and peoples of the world unite to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity and effectively implement them all over the world, various conflicts and wars between people and countries will continue to occur. For this reason, people will never live in measure and harmony, that is, happily. 2. People need to realize that only when they adopt a moral, reasonable, healthy lifestyle will they be able to live happily ever after. 3. Every person should be well educated and trained from childhood. This should be done not only by educators and teachers in various educational institutions, where it is possible to create all the necessary conditions for the comprehensive development of children, but also by the parents themselves. 4. A person should strive to do as much as possible useful for himself, humanity, and nature in his life. This will help him live well in this life and will allow him to improve the fate of his immortal soul in future incarnations. 5. The main meaning of life for each person should be the fulfillment of the 17 goals of sustainable development of mankind, continuous self-improvement, their decent well-being and a healthy lifestyle in order to live happily for the benefit of maintaining eternal life in the eternal universe. Thanks to such meanings of life, people will stop destroying themselves and nature because they will understand that every sane person is very important and necessary in this world. 6. Without your own work, a person will always feel bad. Therefore, he must engage in intelligent activities in order to live a good life. Thanks to the law of overproduction, all working people with reasonable consumption will always have enough for a happy life. Useful work is necessary for a person, and in order that when it is good for him it does not become bad, and when it is bad for him, so that it becomes better faster. This is a good incentive for people to force themselves to engage in sensible activities when they are too lazy to do anything. 7. No power or higher forces will make people healthy and happy if they do not stop seeking pleasure in immeasurable greed, idleness, sexual promiscuity, drunkenness, drugs, smoking, and other vices. This is due to the fact that no one can save people from various torments and make them happy if they steal, rob, rape, cheat, extort bribes, do not work, destroy their immunity with various excesses, destroy each other and nature. Such people will always feel bad, no matter what the government is and what living conditions are created for them. Therefore, they will constantly arrange various revolutions, conflicts, and wars, thinking that the new government will make them happy. Only when people become educated, moral, fully developed, and useful in this world will they stop suffering from vices, wars, and many other troubles. And this can only be achieved when all peoples and countries of the world unite and implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the happiness of every sane person and for the benefit of maintaining eternal life in the eternal universe. If the Earth's population does not do this, it will destroy itself in a global nuclear war. 2025. Matsepura Gerald Ivanovich.